same as the ladder map pool. So it's kind of hard to practice when your map pool is not the same. I mean, you still can, of course, and your mechanics, you know, stuff like that, but... Yeah, I don't know, man. I went to Korea, and, you know, maybe the top 1% of GM is really, you know, I mean, obviously, they're, you know, top 1% is really good, but, like, I don't know, people who made it sound like you couldn't go Disruptors ever on Korea Grandmaster, and that is not the case I found. And I am not very good. Keep that in mind. Because I think it's popular with everyone, easy to build a scene around. I don't know if I completely agree with this. So bored, SC. Who's staring? They were the first to really do it big, but there's no reason. GM for my first game. What? It's Masters. But, you know, my understanding of a lot of it, you know, you should really, so bored SC, you know, if you are bored, like your name implies, I would highly recommend watching a Carmack interview. I don't know if someone's going to have the link for us or not, but to me, it really does speak a lot of truth, and it might not be the whole reason, of course, but, you know, I'll briefly touch upon what it is they were talking about, and, you know, basically, I mean, yes, Koreans definitely train really, really hard. Not disputing that at all, for sure. But a lot of what hurt the North American scene in general, especially in like Wings and stuff and Heart of the Swarm, was you'd have a lot of these players, you know, on the cusp, you know, wannabe pro gamers. You know, let's say I wasn't a streamer and I was a rank 30 grandmaster, you know, and I'm a full-time student, you know, it's like, all right, you know, okay, I'm gonna take a semester off. I'm really gonna push for top grandmaster and try to make some money on this game. And what really ended up happening was, you know, every time we had an event, an MLG, you know, a DreamHack. This was the first DreamHack event. It was MLGs back then. That's basically what it was. And, you know, we'd have an MLG or an event. You know, let's say I wanted to, you know, make some money. I'd be like, all right, Mom, flying out to, you know, San Jose. I'm gonna go try to make some money on this game of StarCraft that I've just spent the whole semester practicing for. So then me, you know, on the cusp, not making any money playing the game, trying to become pro, I go out there, and then MLG flies out players like MC, flies out, you know, top level Koreans to come and play at these MLGs. And basically what ends up happening, as I'm so apply blocked here, but basically what ends up happening is it wasn't like if the Korean players flew out and like spent their own money to come to an MLG and win it, like great for them, you know, nothing against that. What was happening was MLG was paying for these players to come across seas to play in these American events and pretty much take, you know, my money, theoretically. So like if I went to the map pool, you know, if I went to that DreamHack and I was like, man, I need to make $1,000 or my mom's not gonna let me continue to stream, and then they just kind of instantly take my money, you know, they instantly win, then, you know, I say, look, I can't play StarCraft anymore. I can't make a living off it. And living in cost in North America is pretty high. So like compared to, you know, like even Europe, for example, cost of living in United States it's a little bit different than it is in Europe as well. It's a little bit it's different, you know, compared to all the full-time players in Europe, even. So I don't know, that's my take on it. And I think there is quite a bit of truth there. You know, you have like a lot of people who are on the cusp who are really, really good players. And it's hard for them to say, look, I can keep playing StarCraft when they're not making any money. So, something to think, you know, it's always something you can debate and whatnot. But it's something kind of interesting to think about anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Something kind of interesting to think about. I always like thinking about that. Western Europe, I mean, I'm not saying all places, right? And there's some places in America that don't have a high cost of living, but I'm talking generally. You know, generally, like, the cost of living in the United States, you know, think about college compared to Europe. Like, if you're trying to be a student and play StarCraft, like, you can't play StarCraft. You're not gonna be able to live. Like, that's just how it goes, dude. Like, that's a big thing, especially for kids our age. How am I gonna live when I'm not making any money playing a game of StarCraft? I just have to go to school and I have to give up StarCraft. So, First Base Marine agrees. I like that. Ready for a Widowmine drop as well while we're mid discussion here. How many full-time pros told me they were quitting because the Koreans win all the prize money? I mean, do you remember when? Yeah. I mean, it's like that's part of the factor. I don't think it's the whole issue. But, you know, and like a lot of the Koreans do come to America, right? You know, we have Poland, we have, right? You got Europe has almost none of the Koreans, and you know it's whatever. You know, I don't care. You know, it really doesn't bother me that Pol and you know Violet are all, you know, they're living here now, so it's not a big deal to me. But the biggest, you know, one of the issues we had was for certainly. You know, the fact that we did, you know, you'd have these aspiring players. I couldn't make any money because Koreans would come over and take, you know, they'd win. They'd win all the money. So, I don't know. It's something to think about. You know, NA sometimes gets a lot of flack, but it's just different cultures. And if you actually look at, like, League of Legends, and I'm not 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, Korea is still good. But, you know, they have such a stronger NA and EU scene because they have only North American tournaments. They have only European tournaments, right? They have the EU LCS, they have the NA LCS. I don't know how much you guys know about League of Legends. But basically what happens is they have, you know, a North American version, and they have a European version that the Koreans are not in. So it's like, look, if you're aspiring League of Legends player and you're like, Mom, I'm pretty good at this game called League of Legends, and it's like, look, I can join this LCS team, and it's like, okay. You know, that's how you can kind of keep a fan base, and that's kind of what WCS is trying to replicate. Some people don't really see it, but that is kind of what they're trying to replicate. Is where, you know, they got this foundation where, you know, and everyone's so angry about it, and it's like the competition really is not that bad. You know, so many people who are elitists and like, oh, it's not Korean, I'm not going to watch it. Like, you know, these level of games, you know, foreign level games is still very high. You know, yes, maybe they'll make a mistake every now and again, but like, people are sometimes just so critical. You know, people will be like, oh, you know, Neeb's not that good. You know, Nurchio's not that good. It's like, oh, it's just foreigners. Like, come on, man. Like, foreigners are good. And I think the issue, a lot of times I hear, you know, in my opinion with the community is like, I mean, that's kind of one of the issues though. Is like they're just so hypercritical. It's like, man, these are some great players. Why can't we just enjoy it? Why can't we just enjoy it? And I think it's just one of those situations to me where. That's what it is what WCS is all about now. They're trying to make it so that, you know, there's a North American scene, there's a Europe scene, there's money for the foreigners now. That's what League of Legends has. They have money for the foreigners. Smiley House, thanks for that follow. So it does matter. It does matter. It's hard to be like, all right, I'm gonna go pro when, you know, the Koreans just take all the money. Glory to the day. I have met the end. At least part of the issue. Problem is that the Koreans, if they are better, they will succeed. The problem is that basically the scene has enough resources to fund a player pool much bigger than, you know, the top Koreans. But I mean, if you try to widen the prize pool out to other, you know, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't know. It's a fine line. I think he's out here, isn't he?
Glorious combat is upon us.
What is going on out here? Oh. You cannot fight me, my friend. I know I have another shot, it just wasn't hotkeyed. But I know what you're saying. I mean, that is an issue as well, but I don't know. I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm just a man with my own opinion. You guys can have your own opinions on the issue. You can have your own opinions on the issue, that's for sure. Don't think everything I said is correct, you know. You know, I might have definitely misspoke somewhere. But that is my kind of general thoughts on the matter anyway. My general thoughts. $35,000 Bank of SC2 attorney is good regardless. I mean, that is good. But that is like the top echelon. Because when SC2 came out, they had tournaments like 90k up top in Korea. I mean, I don't know if the prize pool in Korea being higher was the big motivating factor for them being better. I do think as well there is something to be said about the money foreign teams were making, right? A lot of foreigner players were making a lot of money back then, just from, you know, sponsorships and stuff. And, you know, that's, you know, these are all obviously other different discussions that, you know, you can look either way at, but, you know, when you're getting, you know, let's say you're getting $2,000 a month just from being on the team, right? You're not even winning any tournaments. You know, it's like, sometimes you would want to say, okay, that's when I'm going to get all hungry, but then sometimes it's also like, see a drop? Sometimes it's like, alright, I really don't have to worry about this because I know I'm getting this amount of money anyway. Mothership 4 not hockey? It is.
Defense systems failing.
So. He's gonna kill that one, isn't he? Nope. This is good for us. Boom. Oh no! Interesting. Definitely want to be getting Stargate soon. See you later, course base. Marine, take it easy, dude.
Persevere.
Oops. Oops.
Glory to the Daemon.
See that Widow Mine? We don't want to deal with that. He's really getting me as Liberators. Oh. We misclicked as well there. We should have way too much at this point. Took too many Disruptor shots. 1G. Good game. So I think we're probably just gonna get 2 points from this, 1 bonus pool. 4 points. I don't know what he meant first game back. Has he not played tonight? Milo!